Okay, so today I'm going to take the film that we shot last week up in Copper Harbor on my trip to the post office to have it sent out to be developed. I send it out to Colorado, a place called Denver Digital Imaging. Colorado might seem kind of far from Michigan to have to send film, but the place I used to get it done, it doesn't do E6 anymore and much film processing anymore. So these guys are pretty big, they're reputable, they've been around for a while, and they don't plan on going anywhere as long as people are still shooting film. So I'm gonna stick with them, and they do a great job of taking care of me. So let's take it off to the post office, come on. It's a beautiful day today, October 26th. It's been raining pretty much the whole time I've been home from the trip, but nice now. A little bit soggy and wet this morning. We had some frost, first frost I've seen this year. A little bit of steam coming out of there. So we're gonna just walk over to the post office and drop the goods off, and then we'll wait patiently for it to show up and take a look at it, and then hopefully get it scanned. Let's head on over to the post office. Well, fall has definitely arrived here to Leelanau Peninsula. Last week on the 16th when I headed up to the UP, wasn't quite here. It was definitely showing some signs, but we didn't quite have the full color that we're in right now. You know, if anybody ever asks me what my favorite color is, I always tell them October. So I'm excited to see how this turns out. We shot 3 rolls of 120 while we were up there, and 3 sheets of 4x5. And I think I got some good composition, some good subject matter. Feel pretty good about it. But you never really know until you get the film back. You know that whole adage, the proof is in the pudding. Well, my old mentor that I used to work for on the auto show, Glenn Preston, used to say the proof is in the eating of the pudding, because until you eat the pudding you don't really know if the proof is in it. I guess you can look at the pudding, you know, it may look like the proof is in there, but until you eat it you don't really discover that the proof is actually in the pudding. So we won't know until the film is developed and we eat the film. No, scan it. Well, let's just have a look at it and see how it turned out. Little plug for Nick, we'll get that in there. If you're ever in Sutton's Bay and you need to rent a bicycle, have a bicycle serviced, want to go on a bicycle trip or tour, go see Nick at Sutton's Bay Bikes. Here we are at the post office. Let's go drop this in. Okay, there you go. Film dropped off, out to the lab, and now we just wait. Which is always the hardest part. Not like digital where you just look at the back of your camera on the LCD monitor and whew, there it is, image. No, with film, it's a little bit more of a game of patience. Hey guys, what's happening? Today is Wednesday, November the 8th, and when I went to the post office today, I had a little surprise waiting for me. Got the film back from Denver Digital Imaging that we sent out from the fall trip up to Copper Harbor. So excited to have a look at this. Let's unbox it and get it on the light table and have a look. Come on, let's go. Okay, so let's have a look first at the 3 sheets of 4x5 that we exposed out in Copper Harbor. And this is going to be the exposure of the 3 humpbacks that I took on October 17th. So we'll just pull these out of the box here in no particular order and have a look and see what we got. So that's some nice color. Well, there is the first one of 3. I'm guessing that by looking at this that this may be the last exposure that was made of the evening, but I'm not sure. I'll have to look at the other 2 as well. So like the color, nice and warm, really vivid as you would expect from Fuji Velvia 50. Definitely getting that detail I was hoping to get here on the rocks, on the front of the rocks, whereas when I made this a similar exposure and composition to this in the summertime when I was there with the Mamiya 7.2, this was all pretty much silhouetted black rocks. But here, we're definitely getting some detail here on the rocks, and there's enough light that you're able to kind of see what they are. Also, when I used the 43mm wide-angle lens on the Mamiya 7.2, these were very kind of small and more distant on the horizon, whereas they're a bit more prominent in this composition than they were. So definitely a little bit larger. You can kind of tell what they are. Lots of cool motion going on in the water. So that's pretty abstract. Again, that could be, that could be a salt flat. It could be sand. It's a little bit easier to tell that it is water here because you're getting some opacity, and I can see kind of the rocks below the surface of the shoreline here. But some nice movement in it. It's a little bit of nice tonal kind of texture here around the shoreline. Nice leading line here at the shoreline. Plenty of detail in the rocks here. Really nice color in the sky. Yeah, it's a good exposure. I like that. Pretty happy with how that turned out. So let's see what the other 2 look like. Okay, so this one definitely earlier in the day. That was probably again the last one that was exposed. So it's not the best color for my taste or mood. It's a little blasé mood-wise. This may have been the first exposure that was taken, but detail here on the rocks for sure. Nice silky water again, a little bit bluer. Before that, that real red wavelength started to come through as the sun hit the horizon. So it's the sky's pretty bland, pretty boring. Nothing really going on there. But again, I think this was probably the first exposure that was made. And I was just trying to catch some detail really in the rocks. Wasn't sure what to expect from the light as the sun kind of dipped down behind the hillside behind us. So yeah, exposure-wise, I think we nailed the exposure. Here's your brightest area of the composition again, right here in the water, which is what I'd set for my zone 7. So, not bad, not terrible. It's still kind of a likable shot, but definitely not my favorite. All right, now I don't know. I don't know if this may have been the last one. This one seems to have maybe a little bit more color in it. Those 2 last ones were very close. One was right around 7 o'clock and one was maybe 15 minutes before that. So again, I like this one a lot as well. We definitely still are retaining the detail here in the rock. Yeah, tonally, I think it looks really good. It's got some really nice color in it, some nice Some nice texture here in the water a little bit. So the water is a little bit textured, which is cool. So you can kind of tell it's water, but it also is captured that movement of a longer exposure as well. So sky is not really doing anything. The clouds kind of really weren't, there wasn't really a lot of cloud activity, but you know, a really nice gradation here going on with the redder sky coming down into this kind of, you know, purplish water, purple rocks, and then again the three humpbacks here with some nice detail on them. So yeah, I think, you know, these two exposures really very similar. This one's got a little bit, I'd say this one right here is a little bit more maybe tonally balanced. This is definitely the last one of the day because that red wavelength of light is just dominating here. Everything is, it's somewhat, I wouldn't say sepia, but somewhat pushed towards more of a sepia or monochromatic look. Again, it's not a black and white, but it's more of a mono coloration in this shot, whereas this one has some separation of color. So I like both of these actually. That's kind of tough. I'll have to play around with it. I'll have to look at them a little bit more. Now this one definitely has a very warm mood to it, or a purpley fall kind of mood to it. This one is, again, there's some nice mood here. I like them both. Can't really say right now which one would be my favorite out of the two. So we'll have to sit on that. But all these exposures came out really well. I like the composition. I think I achieved what I was looking for. So I'm going to set up to look at the 120 now. Okay, so now I've got the jig set up for the 120 and moved my camera a little bit closer so we can kind of see this stuff. So 3 rolls of 120, no particular order. Just pulled the rubber band off and grabbed the first roll I could. So I'm going to try to feed this through and we'll have a look at it. It may be a little bit awkward here, so bear with me. I didn't trim any of the roll up yet to have a look at it because I kind of want to just be surprised as I'm doing this review. So let's get the first one in here and we'll have a look. So this is all Velvia 50 120 medium format sheet film. So this one, okay, this is probably from the second roll, I think. This was one of those kind of intimate, actually this may be, this one is actually, I take that back, this is the last roll that I exposed. So this was, yeah, this was all exposed on the 19th, October 19th, the last roll that I had fed in. So this was back out on the point again where the 3 humpbacks are in Copper Harbor. And I kind of like I love the rock formation, first of all. These rocks are just gorgeous. They're amazing. And there's so much detail and texture in them. And I really liked how the lichen was kind of, you know, growing off back this way, and these rocks were kind of leading the eye out. You start, your focus comes into here and you kind of leads your way out. And all rimming the background here were some color from some of these aspen trees back in here and some pines intermixed in. Looking like up here in the corner there was a little buoy that had washed up on shore and somebody tied it up to a tree. And I thought I moved that out of the frame. It wasn't in the frame, but it looks like I captured some of that in there, which is kind of a bummer. Of course, it can always be cropped, but don't like to have to do that if I don't have to. But yeah, I think that's what happened. That's part of that buoy. Now, I did end up moving it a little bit later on, so maybe I moved it after I made this exposure. But again, you know, exposure-wise, tonally, everything is laying in there really nicely. And I really like this one. It's kind of a very soft, relaxing image. Um, the lichen again growing on the rock. Getting some of the late afternoon sun kind of rimming the corner here of some of the stone. The colored leaves, the oranges and yellows here, and some of the aspen looking very nice. So really pleasing composition and intimate. I haven't done really any intimate compositions for a while, and I was wanting to do that. So the goal was to just get something a little bit more of an intimate kind of fall scene, and something that really spoke of the Keweenaw and Copper Harbor. So I think I achieved that. Again, I'm not happy that this showed up here, that little buoy that washed up on shore, somebody tied up in a tree. That's been there for years. For the past 3 years that I can remember going there, I've seen that thing there. It's quite a ways to try to hike to get that back out of there to get that disposed of properly. So it's kind of become a fixture. But I moved it. So let's see if any of the other compositions have that in it. But like that one. Yeah, same thing here. Just a redundancy of that shot. Again, it's pretty much the same exposure. Looks very similar. Very happy with it. I like it. Still got that buoy. So something I'll have to crop out. But I think I'm going to get this one scanned. I like it. I like the just the simplicity of it, and again, it's kind of got a very peaceful, calming feeling to it when I look at it. So really happy with that. Exposure wise, it's right on, and some really nice tonal separation. And again, I like how the eye kind of flows in this way and then follows the point of the rock out, and you kind of look around over here at the color in these trees and then kind of come back in. So yeah, happy with that one. Let's see here. This is another more intimate shot. I wanted to get a couple of these. So this roll here, I definitely did a little bit more of that evening. Very similar to the last composition, just a little bit different rendering of it. But again, yeah, I like it. I kind of wanted to follow. I liked the tonal separation of this darker bit of rock here that was sprinkled with some green lichen on it. So you got a little bit of a contrast between the green lichen and this darker rock, and then the lighter bit of rock with lichen, and also these cracks that kind of lead the eye if you follow it in, and the intention was to lead the eye through the frame up to this corner and then back around and kind of follow through like this. So, I've got some of those aspens out here with some of the orange leaves and some of the trunks still, and again, the back behind them are some pine, and it falls off into the forest. So it's kind of darkened out. So they kind of stand out here tonally on the very fringe of the image. But the other intention again was to catch that fall in Copper Harbor. You definitely tell it was in the Keweenaw by the rocks. And yeah, I like this one as well. Very similar feeling between the two. They could almost be sister images. So this one, I definitely had moved that piece of that buoy out for sure. So I moved it quite a ways off. Yeah, I like that one. Both those images, very happy with that so far of what I've seen. And this will be just a redundant image. I generally will take 2 of the same images. Not always separated by great time. A lot of times I'll photograph an image, the same composition, but I'll photograph it under a different light. So I'll get it around the golden hour, then I'll wait till at sunset, and then I'll photograph it at dusk and get that blue hour. But these were taken pretty much right on top of each other. This is in the golden hour time frame. It certainly wasn't any direct light because the sun would have been off this way over the hill. But yeah, I like it. Very, very much the same as the composition before it. But yeah, I mean, very, very intimate. I could really see this hanging on the wall. So cool. Happy with that. All right, so this is kind of what I was out there to do at the end, was to try a little bit different composition of the three humpbacks. So this was taken almost directly in front of them, and I kind of used the shoreline here to create a little bit of a line that would kind of lead the eye in around this way and then back across the humpbacks. So I'm not sure I like it compositionally, to be honest with you. It's not extreme enough of an angle for me to take you kind of, you know, vertically almost on a 45 through the image. It's a very flat leading line. So I really like what I'm seeing in the water. I'm getting some nice light and texture here on one of the humpbacks out here. So that shows up very well, which was what I was looking for. I like what's going on with the sky. I believe I had the Firecrest ND again on this one. I can't recall, to be honest with you now. But I believe I did. I had the 3-stop Firecrest ND in there. But this was one of the earlier shots exposed, so it wouldn't have been a longer exposure. It is somewhat of a long exposure, but not as long as probably the last two that I shot. So I mean, I like it. I mean, Fuji Velvia is beautiful film, and I love the way it renders a landscape. I mean, you don't have to do much to that, but scan it and then just maybe do some, you know, dodge and burn and some luminance, you know, play with some luminance layers to tonally get the eye to go where you want it to go. But you don't need to ramp up contrast. You don't need to ramp up saturation in Fuji Velvia film. It's just beautiful. I like it. I do like it. I like, you know, this tonal separation. There's a nice separation here between the darker tones, the lighter tones, the band along the horizon. The sky's doing some interesting things. There's some nice reflections in the water. It's just a little bit different perspective. You know, I like it. It's not quite, there's not quite enough line and direction and depth to it for me. But it's not to say that I won't scan it. I'll have to sit on it. So let's see what the next one looks like. Very similar. A little bit less light on that exposure. So again, the sun was going down, but you know, I can see here on the first one of the three humpbacks that there's plenty of light to show that detail that I was hoping to capture. And you can see that there. So that's what I wanted to do, was get some of that in there. And certainly achieved that. But I mean, again, I really, you know, tonally it's really nice color in there. I like the composition. I was hoping to get more of a line here, a leading line here, than I was able to get. Let me see if I can brighten this one up just a bit for you. There we go. So I would have liked to had, you know, this line of the shore coming in a little bit closer to the bottom of the frame and coming up this way. That would have given me a little bit more what I needed. But it's where this is, it's really hard to get that perspective, to get that angle. I would have had to come much further over this way to the side, and I wouldn't have been able to frame these up this way. So there's always a trade-off, and there's a reason why I chose that other composition earlier and hadn't shot this perspective. But you know, again, I like it. It's not a bad image. We'll see what I end up doing with it. Oh wow, what happened here? I think I made a mistake. I think I screwed this one up. I was thinking about playing with some double exposures, multiple exposures. So I put the camera in multiple exposure mode, which means that you can make several exposures without advancing the film, since it is a roll film thumb advance, a mechanical advance system. If you put it in the multiple mode, then it will allow you to make several exposures without having to advance the film, whereas that's not the case if it's in just your single shot mode. So I think I was thinking about playing around with a couple multiple exposures to try to catch more detail in things, but also have it a long stacked exposure look of movement layering over the top of each other, which I did something similar to that with the 4x5 the last year I was here. But I hadn't done that yet on the camera, and I think I made a mistake, screwed up, knew I was at the end of the roll, and I had only a couple shots left, and I wanted to make sure that I got what I wanted. So I think this was just a mistake on my part here. Okay, same image. Light conditions are looking a little bit different as the sun has kind of set. I'm liking I've all of these images. I'm really happy tonally with how they've turned out and light wise. Not much difference here. Not a ton of movement in the sky. The sky wasn't really moving the very fast. The clouds were kind of settled. The water, of course, continues to move. So I don't know. I like this one too. Again, I'm not super happy with the way that the shoreline runs through it. It's almost flat. It's almost just a flat image. I was trying to catch the shoreline and have it come across on an angle like this more, so it was more pleasing and easier for the eye to wander through, but it just didn't come together that way. I do like it. I just it's not my favorite compositionally. Tonally, exposure wise, the colors, the light, what's going on, I really like that. Just not so psyched about the way I've composed the shot, but I wouldn't say it's a throwaway. Okay, there's the last one. I really like the mood of this one. It's a tad underexposed. Although, right there on the horizon, I could have pushed this a little bit more. So it's cool though. It's a moody shot. It's kind of neat. But nothing special. Nothing to write home about. I wouldn't say it's a big mistake or anything. I just it's nice. It's nice. I don't know. To look at it a little bit more. See what I think about that. Okay, I'm going to move on. I think there's one more. See, I must have done something there. Oh, and this again, this is what happens. Now, this one's probably my favorite, and I figured it would be. But I got the end of the roll. Oh, that's a shame. That's a shame. Might be able to crop that out. And I kind of mentioned this in the actual Keweenaw adventure series that I anticipated this was going to happen. When I'm loading the roll film in the Mamiya 7.2, there's a little marker in the center that says start. It's the start of your film, and there's a tick mark at the top in the middle of the frame where you're supposed to line that up to. And you have to be very specific and very careful that you get that start mark lined up correctly. And for whatever reason, I seem to always get it lined up just past that. So when you do that, you run into this where you could be at the very end of the roll and you have a little bit more on the leader end, which I do. So that's a shame because I do like this one much better than, color wise. I like what's going on in the sky. Actually, this was a much longer exposure. We had some really wispy stuff going on, nice soft water. Again, compositionally not the best, but there's a little bit more darker tone here that kind of creates, I feel like there's more of layering going on here, some more depth to this one. So really kind of bummed about that. Again, I could probably crop it, but now I'm kind of pushing this guy to the edge of the frame, which I'd like to have some more room. So kind of a shame that happened, but again, I did anticipate this happening, so I'm not surprised to see that. It's too bad. Too bad it wasn't just a quarter of an inch over. It would have been okay. So, oh well. This is going to be, I believe, the second roll. This is from that morning hike out to Montreal Falls. I kind of like that. It's kind of cool. I like what's going on with the water there. There's some really neat layering going on in the water. Nice soft water, a little bit longer exposure. It wasn't, I don't remember what the exposure was on this either. If it was like a half a second exposure, somewhere around there. Because it was a little bit after, it was after sunset. So this is before 10 a.m. and the sun was coming up from this way. This is the east. So over the top of these trees, and it was starting to kind of make its way up and over, but it was still low enough that we weren't getting any direct light. So, but I mean, I like this nice line here. I like how this is layered up. It's kind of like a split in half image between the two tonal differences of some real bright and dark tone, marbly looking composition, and then this very, very similar, little bit darker tones, but with the greens of the trees and sprinkled in some little bit of yellow from some of the trees, and then this rocky shoreline here of the river. But I think that turned out pretty much how I expected it to turn out. And it's a very pleasing image. I do like it. I really like what's going on with the layering in the water. I think the water really makes it for me in this image. So yeah, I like that one. That one's cool. Looks pretty good. Let me just jump in there for you, give you a real close look at some of the water. That's pretty cool. Got some nice layering going on in there. There's a nice little baby pine right there. A little bit of color. So I'm pretty happy with how that turned out. So far, no real major disappointments, although that last one was somewhat of a disappointment because that was my favorite exposure out of the 3 or 4 that I took that night. But again, I kind of anticipated that. Okay, so here's the same shot. A little bit darker, wasn't quite exposed as long. So I always, with these images, I always am metering, and I was probably metering the water right about here. So I'm always looking for the brightest part of an image that I can control and set. I want to set my brightest parts, my whites or lightest tones in my zone 7. So there's still a little detail. I don't want it to be completely blown out. If I choose to do something like that in post, I could certainly overexpose the image there for an effect, but not sure exactly what happened. It didn't quite translate well. I mean, this looks like it's around zone 7 in here, but must not have been getting as much of a reflected light back on this one as the previous shot. So the previous shot came out really well. I would say that this one is a little bit underexposed up in here. So, but good thing I did doubles. It looks like I got another one too. And same thing here. This one's, looks like I think we're starting to get some of the sun peek through. The sun was kind of peeking through and kissing these leaves here and then kind of kissing the water here. So that changed my changed the exposure a little bit because I didn't want these areas to blow out, but it really, the rest of this suffered tonally back here. So, you know, of those three, that's the one. That came out pretty even. Nice exposure. These again, they're not terrible. I mean, I could certainly work with that. You could certainly, there's definitely enough detail. You could bring that up. A little bit different. I'll have to look at them. You know, this is just my initial feelings and thoughts on them. But okay, let's move on to the next one. All right. You know what? I'll tell you what. So this image here is one that I was really feared. I shot this with the 80mm lens, and I was really fearing that I was going to be too close to the edges of these rocks with that 80mm. When I was looking at it and composing it in the viewfinder, really looked like I was going to be encroaching on the sides of these. I thought it was going to be much tighter. I thought it was going to be more like this. But that 80mm actually did capture enough breathing room in this composition, because nothing here, there's a lot of breathing room there. So that was kind of the effect I was looking for. I wanted to kind of cut the horizon just below the middle of the frame, capture a little bit more of the higher sky. I was looking for more of a monotoned look for this one. So monotone meaning very similar one-toned type images, not necessarily black and white, but more of just a mono-y look and tone feel to it. And this one was the first one I made. You can see it's kind of cool here. There's some light, some water splashing up on the rock right there, because this was not a very long exposure, this shot. You see the water splashing up on the rock. So that's cool. We caught a little bit, stopped a little bit of that action there. What I was going for in this first exposure was I wanted to catch the light rimming on these rocks here, so the sun. So this was golden hour. The sun was still... It's kind of difficult because this is the north coast of the Keweenaw Peninsula, so the sun at this time of year is setting really to the southwest, and it's going behind the ridge lines and behind the peninsula and the land that you're standing, and you're shooting a little bit more north, or in this case this was northeast. So you do lose a little bit more of that golden hour light when you're shooting the coastline. But I was getting some of this rimming going on, so I was trying to isolate that with these rocks out here, and it looks like we did that. I don't know if this one will be scanned. I think I took about at least 3 images of this. But you know what? I really like that. That came out much better than I expected. Much better than I expected. And I had my 2-stop ND grad filter set right here on the horizon line, so the sky is exposed nice. Again, we're getting that kind of late, that Keweenaw wispy high clouds going on through here, so you can see it kind of going off on an angle here. That's pretty cool. There's lots of detail in the water. Again, this wasn't a long exposure. I don't know if I'll scan that one. We'll see what the other ones look like, but I'm very pleased to see that there's enough breathing room here on the sides, because again, I was expecting it to be a little bit tighter or something like this, and I wasn't happy with that. So if you watch it's probably going to be episode number 3. I think that's when I took this shot of the Keweenaw 2017 trip, fall trip. Let's take a look at the next shot. I like this one even better. Still getting some of that light rimming those very northeast rocks. Lots of nice detail here too on these rocks. The water's kind of got some nice texture to it, but now we're getting a little bit different tonal separation. So we got some bright tones here, and then we got some darker tones in the water along the edge of the horizon, some little bit brighter tones here. Somewhat of this lens does not really induce a lot of vignetting, but you will get a little bit. But in this case, I like that. But I mean, I've got some nice sun still rimming those rocks, so that's kind of prominent. So my eye kind of goes out to that, you know, maybe comes through this way and looks up this way at the rocks. I don't do a lot of compositions where I have a lot of high sky like that, but this is pleasing to my eye. There's this wispy line that kind of takes your eye through this way. There's a darker tone, a lighter tone against a darker tone, and then some light tones sprinkled, and then a nice golden rimmed sun on the rock formation out there. So I like that shot. I'm pretty happy with that. That came out pretty well. That one probably be scanned. Oh, wow. Now, I really like what's going on here. I did lose the prominence of those rocks being silhouetted or not silhouetted, but lit up prominently by the sun. But I like what's going on here. Now here, the sun is definitely behind sorts, not quite below the horizon. Obviously, we're still getting that high kind of red orangey light. This is definitely right around sunset. Longer exposure again, so we're brighter here now because that sun isn't coming over and kissing the top of these rocks, where the light is kind of bouncing off these clouds and then kind of lighting this area here. But nice long exposure. There's some cool wave action going up on the side of this rock here, creating some cool streaks in the water on that. That's pretty cool. Lots of detail there in that. There we go. That's in focus. Let's take a look at that again. So there's that. Lots of detail in there. There's enough light on that where you're seeing all those cool, you know, textures in the rocks as they lead back off that way. A little bit of texture in the water, but it's a little bit silkier, smoother. Clouds. This one's pretty cool. I really did not think that this image was going to work out. So I'm pleased to see that I'm happy with what I'm seeing here. I really like this one. I really like this one. This one's really, I'm pleased with this. I'm happy to see that this turned out so well. It's not sure what that is. That could be on the light table below the film. That little speck shouldn't be there, but I really like that one. Pretty happy with that. That one for sure. I'll scan that one. It's nice warm. Okay, so this is, you know, a little bit later composition again, so I'm keeping the shutter open a little bit longer exposure. This is a little bit more of that blue light. Geez, it's a toss-up between the two. The other one's warmer. This one's definitely a cooler toned image, but long exposure in the rocks. Nice high clouds. Some nice, I really like this dark tonal separation here. Then it gradiates up to like a pinker, and then we're back up into these wispy clouds here. Coloration on the camera that I'm looking at in the LCD monitor versus what I'm seeing down here is not spot on. This is definitely a little bit, coloration is a little bit better to the eye here. I mean, between these two, I like them both. I like them both. It's a nice, this is a very calm, peaceful image to me. So, yeah, I'm very pleased with the way that these have both turned out. I did not expect. It's really, this is a tough call between these two because I like this one and I like this one. So I don't know. I might scan them both. I may lean towards this one. This has a little bit more peaceful feeling to me. A little bit more even tonally, or I could say exposure-wise. I don't know. Nice though. A little bit uncharacteristic of the way I usually set my compositions up because I don't have really a leading line coming through, but the way that these rocks are kind of stacked in this negative space here kind of leads the eye out this way. So you're kind of coming in, look at these two dark tones against this very bright tone, and follow those dark tones up towards the horizon. And then the clouds kind of wisp off this way. So it may be a little bit more of your eye going back and forth like this, which is not easy to look at after a while, but I do like that. All right, so this is right at that same spot. And I just wanted to get some textured, intimate close-up stuff. I don't really have anything like that in the portfolio that's this much of an abstract close-up type shot of texture. So I love the rock there. I love the lichen growing on it, the textures, the tones mixed into that area. So exposure-wise, came out spot on. Focus looks great. I was pretty close with the, I think I shot this with the 80 mil. And those lenses will focus pretty close. I think they're about 3 feet or so on the Mamiya 7 II system. So you can get pretty close. So, I mean, it's cool. It definitely says the Keweenaw. I don't know. I'm not sure what I'll do with that. I don't know if I'll scan it. And the beauty about this stuff is you can sit on this. I could sit on this for years and then have it scanned. If I decided to change my mind on it. It's not one of the first ones I'm going to run out and have professionally scanned. I could scan it with my V700 flatbed and have a look at it and play with it. But professionally wise, I wouldn't spend the money on it right now to get the scan. But I do like it. It's just a double. I knew I was at the end of the roll. Light was fading. This was definitely twilight light for sure. Much longer exposure. I don't remember how long this was either. But it's several seconds for sure. Maybe 20 seconds or so, I can't remember. Same kind of deal. This one I like much better. I found this really cool crack in the rock in this whiter kind of mineral deposit, kind of crystallized mineral deposit in the crack, and there's this little tiny plant just holding on for life growing inside of the crack. And I love this dark tone, this nice line going through, this really bright tone, and this little kind of plant growing there. I kind of made these compositions rather quickly at the end of the night, so but I like this. This is pretty cool. This one I would definitely consider scanning and having it professionally done through the drum scanner. So I like that. It came out pretty good. And there's probably one more double of that. Oh, nope. See, that's the end of the roll. So I was lucky enough to wind this roll on correctly for that shot. I like that. That's pretty neat. I could see that hanging on the wall. Okay. One more roll, and then we're done. So this is from the morning and evening of the day that I headed down to Bond Falls. So I got up real early in the morning, drove down to Bond Falls, realized I'd missed the color. In that area because it's a little further inland and south of the Keweenaw. It was about an hour. It was 2 hours. It was 2.5 hours, something like that. It wasn't not too bad of a drive from Copper Harbor, but very famous area. Lots of photographers out there grabbing an image very similar to this. So it's very easy to set up this line in the falls here is just this Z shape. It's very easy composition to use and make. So exposure wise, the water's exposed real well. This is really early. This is dusk. The sun had not quite broke the horizon yet. I like what I'm seeing in the water. There's nothing really special going on back here. I think this was with the 80mm lens as well. Looks cool. It's cool. It's I don't know. Not taken by it. Nothing to write home about. But came out all right. Now this one's a little bit better. So the light has come up. Light has come up. The sun is now over the horizon, and now we're getting more light. So this one I definitely like better. You know, you can see that reflected light of some of the, I think there's some trees or something. We're getting some sunlight starting to come through over here. The sun was coming up from the east this way, southeast was this way. So a little bit warmer because of that. Looking to see if I could crop something in there. I don't know. Exposure's good. Composition's okay. I mean, I love, you know, the look of this Z shape here, and I love the water. I like this real dark, velvety, wet look. I just don't know that this is something that I would spend the big bucks to get scanned properly. Okay. A little bit different composition. This is what I like to do, is I like to grab the corner and bring the eye in towards the subject. So compositionally wise, I think I've achieved that. Got a little bit of the root beer coloration going on here in the water. You can see that, which is great. But I'm not sure. It could be a cool. It's very monochromatic. Could be, you know, could be a cool black and white. You wouldn't have to have the color taken out of it to do so, but you could. I could desaturate this completely and play with it and make it a silver tone image. You know, I was kind of drawn for straws here this morning. I made the drive all the way out here. I wanted to expose some film, so it's okay. I don't know. Not sure that that'll make it. All right. It's interesting to see how this rendered. That's pretty cool. It's pretty mysterious. Definitely got a lot of those fall leaves going on in there in the front, in the foreground here. And this is a rock, a large rock rimmed here. And then the trees in the background. I put a grad filter right here so the sky wasn't blown out, and I wanted this to obviously be the focus. So I kind of like this one. This is kind of neat. This is kind of mysterious and into the woods. You know, definitely know it's fall with all the leaves leading out into this rock here, the really cool rock with some moss and some ferns growing on it. And I like the composition. I like the shape of what's going on here. So that one's pretty cool. Definitely liking this much better than I am the waterfalls. That's pretty neat. So this is just off the trail behind where I was shooting the falls, directly behind me, and not directly into the rising sun. The rising sun was this way, was the opposite, behind this composition. So that's kind of neat. There's some neat depth in that. I could see this one being scanned. It's kind of a neat, intimate, not really, I wouldn't say calming, but it's a neat foresty kind of tonally textured piece. I'm happy with how that came out. That one's pretty cool. Different than anything I've really photographed in the past. I was trying to change my style up a little bit, try to just achieve some looks and things that I haven't really captured a lot of in the past and diversify the portfolio. So same shot, just a redundancy. But I like that. I like it. So far, what I'm seeing on this roll, that's the composition I like the best. Yeah, just, you know, I was kind of shooting into the sun a little bit here. And that's really what makes the difference. And again, you know, tone, the water is going to determine that exposure. So, you know, the dark edges here, and I'm not getting the light would have been falling on it this way. So I'm kind of somewhat, the sun, as you can see up here at the top, the sun is off that way here, still low on the horizon, but I'm just not liking what I'm seeing with any of these shots of the waterfalls. Wouldn't waste any time on this one. Just wasn't able to achieve what I was hoping to achieve with it. Compositionally, I kind of like it, but I don't know. You know, I'd have to play with it. Very dark. Very dark and kind of a very cold and sad or evil type. I don't know. I like some of the glow of the leaves and reflections in the water. This one's a little bit better. I don't know. It's different. It's kind of neat. I'm not sure how to lean on this one. It is kind of growing on me a little bit. I'll have to look at that some more. It's kind of neat. It's different. It reminds me of Lord of the Rings or something. It really does. So maybe it wasn't something I was prepared for to see, but I actually kind of do like it. So I don't know. Maybe I will pull that one out. And that one's very similar too. You can really see the sun coming up back here. I'm not sure. It's tough. Here, the thing with the color slide film is it doesn't handle the contrast very well. So if you have a very contrasty scene, you're going to want to use something more like a color slide film, like Ektar. So, you know, not so much that one. I don't know. I'll have to spend some time really looking at them, but that one I like better. There's some neat tones going on down here, and that sun is coming through up here. I moved this way a little bit more. I like this one better. It really reminds me of Lord of the Rings for some reason. I don't know why. It's funny. That's pretty much that same composition again. It's okay. It's dark. I mean, there's a neat contrast there. I don't know. Wasn't really prepared for those. And then there's the end of the roll, and here's where it came off the roll. So, all right, that's it. Okay, so overall, I'd say I'm pretty happy with the way that all that film turned out. Couple nice shots in there. I think that I'll be able to add to the gallery. And you know, when you come back and you look at your film for the first time, which is why I like to kind of do this review live on camera, you're going to have mixed feelings about things sometimes. Sometimes there's going to be images that are going to jump right out at you, and you're going to really connect with them and feel an emotional connection, and can definitely see those added to the portfolio. And then there's going to be times where there's some images that, you know, you're on the fence about, not really sure. But later on, they could make it into the portfolio, or perhaps they just end up, you know, in film storage for eternity. So we'll see how it turns out. But yeah, overall, very happy, very pleased with the way things came out. Would have liked that last exposure that I had on the 3 humpbacks on the 120. With the really nice kind of twilight coloring and some longer exposure cloud stuff to come out. But again, it was at the end of that roll of film, and I expected that one might be cut off a little bit. So, you know, you win some, you lose some. But overall, you know, 3 rolls of 120, 3 sheets of 4x5. Other than the one mistake that I definitely made because I was trying to do some double exposure stuff, tonally and exposure-wise, everything came out. Focus was great throughout all the images. So it's just a matter of taste in the end. So, but yeah, between what I got this summer on our trip up to Copper Harbor into Minnesota and the Lake Superior North Shore, and then this last fall trip, I've definitely got a stack of images to add to the gallery this year. So haven't had any of that stuff scanned yet. Gonna have to send that off probably, you know, in December to James out in Colorado and have some images scanned, and then work on them throughout, January is usually when I do that. And then I'll start adding that stuff to the portfolio. So I'll probably do a little bit of a little tutorial as I'm doing so, as I'm working on some of those images in Photoshop, just kind of, again, take you through my process and work on a couple images and talk you through that as I do. So look for that one coming up. But yeah, again, pretty happy with everything. So thanks for joining me this time, and thanks for your support as always. If you have any comments, questions, or things you'd like to add, please do so below. Please get involved, here on the channel. Look forward to communicating with you guys and hearing your thoughts and your processes and just what you like about the channel and some things you'd like to see me do in the future. But thanks again for all the engagement. Thanks for the support. And until next time, enjoy the art of natural beauty.